Everybody, it is really good to see you. Right. So here's the problem. That sometimes you're thinking, you look at somebody else's nature journal, and there's, how many people have seen the nature journal of somebody and they're doing more nature journaling than you are? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then how many people ever thought like, oh, I should be journaling that much. I'm not journaling as much as they are. There's something wrong with my nature journaling. Right. So I feel it too. I look at, somebody else's journal, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, wow, I should be doing that. And the minute the S word comes into your sort of thinking and practice that you should be doing this, the minute I start shoulding all over myself, there's pressure. And it's the, you sort of get this feeling of inadequacy, like what I'm doing isn't right. And I should be, doing that and having, and there's another class that's up there. I should be doing that too. So this is not just, putting something down on your page, finding time to go out in nature and do some nature journaling. We can also sort of should all over ourselves about, like, I'm going to, there's that class there and that class there and that class there. One of the wonderful things that's happening right now is that there are more classes happening now than you can possibly take. Some of them actually are concurrent, right? So it's okay. You don't have to. Think of it as all those sort of opportunities for kind of engaging in a nature journaling sort of support thing, as it's there to be support for you. If it becomes something that you feel you should be doing or have guilt because you weren't there doing it for that one and that one and that one, then there's a lot of pressure and it doesn't feel as much fun. Melinda, can I pull you in on this, because you've done some really interesting things in talking to people about, it's not, if there's this class, and this class, your brain can kind of, get stunned by all that information and maybe entertained while you're doing it. But that's different than if you actually kind of get one idea and have a chance to play with it and reinforce it in different ways. That concept, I think you have really elaborated beautifully, and maybe just sort of share that idea, because what Melinda's about to talk about, this is going to tie into both sort of taking classes, but also thinking about, it also is going to relate to just what happens just on the pages of your nature journal. And
yeah. Yeah, thanks, Jack. What's coming to mind on the topic you're talking about is I've been, saying, because this happens to me. So this is, first off, I'm going to tell you that what I'm talking about is firsthand experience. Okay, this happens to me, is happening to me. And this is the insight that I'm getting, and I want to share that with you. There are, like Jack said, there are a lot of workshops and summits and conferences. I signed up for a whole bunch of them in April and May, and I attended none of them, because what it came down to is, I was reading something about the fear. So I think we've heard about the fear of missing out, but someone had articulated the fear of missing information. And I think that's what was happening to me. These summits were not nature journaling related. So this concept can apply to anything. It could be art classes, nature journaling, could be anything. And I didn't want to miss out on all this, great new stuff that was coming. I wanted to be informed. So I signed up. They have great marketing to make you buy things and sign up, limited time, act now, that kind of thing. And so I overpacked my schedule. And what happens is, if I try to shoehorn in one more thing in my schedule, what happens is, Jack has talked about this beautifully, about how our brains work, right? Our brain can only take in so much information at one time. And the way that I'm approaching this is, if I've paid $159 for this whatever, and I'm going to cram in all of these lessons, and I'm not giving myself time to breathe in between those lessons or have time to integrate. Let's say this is a nature journal. Let's say we have 3 back-to-back nature journal classes. If I take 3 back-to-back classes, am I going to remember anything from the first class after I've taken the third class? Actually, there's evidence that shows that after 1 hour, I'm going to forget half of what was said in that first class. Then on top of that, I'm cramming into my brain information from another teacher for a second class, and then the third hour. So what I need to do
That's
is
that
when they're,
Ebbinghaus curve, right?
yes, the Ebbinghaus curve. And there's a lot of research showing that in order for me to integrate and understand and remember that valuable information, right? I've paid some money. I've paid someone some money so they can teach and impart, maybe give me an experience that I want, that I desire. But if I'm not thoughtful about how much information I cram into my brain, then what happens is I lose my money because I've lost everything. I've forgotten it all. And then I'm stressed out, right? And I haven't taken my nature breaks. I haven't taken time to take care of meals or whatever. And so I'm depleted. And so if we can just recognize that, and like Jack said, there are way too many things going on that we have time to do. And so if we can just stop, be still, and say, is this class really, does my heart feel like I want to be there right now? And knowing that things are recorded, and if you never go back to it, it's okay. The teachers are not going to take things personally, right? We are here to offer this experience if it works for you, if it's joyful. I tell my students all the time, don't nature journal if it's a chore. If you feel like you're doing this for my class, then I would much rather you put your journal down, go outside, sit under that tree, and just be in nature for 10 minutes, right? Because you're not learning anything. And actually what you're doing is you're creating a new habit, right? You're taking your nature journal, you're upset. Oh, Melinda assigned this thing and I've got to do this assignment. And if you do your nature journaling in that way, then it's not going to be a fun thing. So what I am doing in my own personal life is I'm looking at my nature journal and saying, is this a have to do? Like a have to versus I want to. Like I know that we all have to-do lists. I have, but it's not just the to-do list. It is about language. I'm always really trying to think about how I speak because I know that our words are powerful. They change the way that we experience our life and the way that we learn, the way that we become. So I recognized recently that I was saying to my family member, oh, I have to take the dog for a walk. I have to go to the store. I have to get gas. And it was spoken in this way that was like, it's a chore. And I thought, I don't really want, I didn't mean it to be that way. So I'm really trying to be thoughtful about what I'm saying and saying, oh, okay, I get to nature journal for a little bit right now. And then I get to go to the store to get some nutritious food for us. And then I get to go out into nature to get a little exercise and walk my dog. So what I'm inviting you to do is to think about what are the unconscious actions that you take, whether it's signing up for one more online class or it's putting one more thing on your to-do list. Just stop and take a breath and ask yourself, is this nurturing you? Right? Or am I just shoehorning one more thing? And I'll tell you, it's not easy, right? I am every day looking at like, am I just trying to squeeze one more thing in, or am I able to create that space? So I'll say that you're going to waste your money if you keep taking too many of these classes back to back. And if you didn't pay money for them, that's great, but you've wasted your time, basically. So I'm just going to invite you to just be gentle with yourself, because also there's a lot of research showing that when we're under stress, under fight or flight, that we're not going to remember the things that we're experiencing. And our brain, our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that does, analytical thinking, is offline. So if you're stressed out and you're sitting in a class trying to learn and taking notes, it's not, you would be better served taking that hour and just going outside, reading a book, laying on the grass, taking a bath, playing with your children, your dog, whatever brings you joy. I think that's the bottom line, is we want you to nature journal when it feels joyful, right? Because it's not about the act of nature journaling. It really, to me, this process of learning nature journaling is really about changing the way that you interact with the world. I've had many students. I actually had one student call me this weekend. He said he took 3 of my classes. He no longer nature journals every day, or maybe even frequently. But what he told me, what's changed his life from taking nature journaling classes, is he sees the world differently. And every single day, he sees something he never saw before. And it's because of the practice of nature journaling. So this is what I'm saying to you all, is it's not about the page, it's about the process, right? It's about the process. And this is what I want to keep driving home to anyone who comes to any of my workshops or classes. You know, it doesn't matter what your page looks like. If you came over to my house and we flipped through my nature journals, most of them are scribbles. And Claire Walker Leslie is a perfect example. I was really inspired. She gave me permission to not have perfect pages. So I want to give you permission not to have perfect pages, to scribble, to have fun, to not feel like it's got to look pretty, right? We see too many pretty pictures, and I think that gets us in the trap. So this conversation today is just really valuable and really timely, you know, at this time where we've had a whole year together of almost daily nature journaling, and it's okay to put some space. I'm actually doing the same, because I've been doing daily sun tracking in my house for about a year, and the last couple of months I've been kind of busy and cloudy, and there's this little voice in my head that's beating myself up. Oh, you need to collect this daily information, or my dawn choruses. You know, I haven't done a dawn chorus in a couple of weeks, and I was doing them several times a week last year. And if I keep following that little voice inside that says you must do this, then it loses its joy. And I must let go of the guilt, because the reason why I do those things in my nature journal is not for collecting all that data. It's for my observing nature, getting to create a relationship with the birds that are in my yard, right? They're becoming my family. They have become my family. And just like friends, sometimes there are friends that we spend a lot of time with, and then some parts of our friendships are just periodic, right? We see someone periodically. And even within that time, we might not have daily contact with some really people that we really care about, because life ebbs and flows. And if we allow ourselves to ebb and flow with our interests and our passions and life experiences, it's going to be more joyful, right? So when we're rigid, it's going to be really tough. So let's flow.
I want to pick up on a thread that you sewed into that beautiful fabric there, about that. It's thinking about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're building a relationship, not just with nature, but with your nature journal. And if that relationship between you and your nature journal is based on the shoulds versus the get tos, then when life gets in the way, you will be like, now I've got an excuse to put down the shoulds. And actually, we should put down most, perhaps all. What would happen if those shoulds in our world, they lost the guilt power that they have? Like if you're sort of shooting on yourself out and kind of guilting yourself into doing something, can we let go of that? Can we develop a relationship with the nature journal that is based on love and celebration and being present in the world? Can I put that should book down and reapproach my relationship with the nature journal to be something that I get to do, and I do because I choose it, because of where it takes me in my heart and in my life? And so if I get less done on the page, that's fine. If I'm doing it in a way that that builds me. The that kind of, I'm going to take a little bit of a diversion here into a poem for a moment. This may be a circuitous path that we're on here. So just this is a poem by David White called "Sweet Darkness," and he writes, "When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes the darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you." Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. And think about that and let it soak in. And what we're trying to do is let this practice of, for me, the nature journaling, when I'm approaching it with the sort of get to versus the should, it brings me so alive. And the world and the mysteries, they all light up around me and come out to play and dance. And that's where I want to hold this activity. So sometimes when I'm journaling, you know, there can be this feeling of I gotta get it all. Or first of all, I should be doing it more. There is somebody out there who's journaling more than you, and it's okay. Right? You have my permission to journal less than they do. Right? It is okay to be journaling at the level that you are. And if it brings you alive to do it more, I invite you to step into that more. And if it then starts to feel like a chore, I invite you to step back from that and just to kind of keep it at a place where it is this tool for that your heart celebrates using and kind of engaging in the world. That's the level that you should be doing it. And it's going to be different for every one of us, and it's going to be different for you at different times of the year, of your life. And feel free to sort of ebb and flow with that. I find I am a creature of habit, though, and when I get out of the habit of doing it, sometimes that happens and I don't really notice it. And then I realize like, wow, I really haven't been nature journaling. And then so I'll intentionally kind of have to kind of shake my tree and kind of get me back into doing it. And then like, oh yes, this, this is what I've been missing, right? So you may find that there are times where you use the amount that you do it, it's either because the rest of your life is requiring you to do other things, or just because it's gotten out of your routines. That also is going to ebb and flow. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean you're a bad nature journaler. You should have and now you've missed like that first half of the year. So you might as well just forget it for this rest of the year. Really? Or could you just sort of re-engage and sort of start where you are, and play with it and bring it along. And then there's how much you nature journal in a day, in a week. And I want to invite you to sort of think of kind of bite-sized nuggets. One way of handling it is to, rather than think I need to fill up a page, see if I can get something about this experience on paper to help me remember it, and or help me observe it a little bit more. And independent of how much that fills on a page, it's okay. Sometimes people, like, if I don't have time to, like, they think about their journaling in terms of pages. How many pages can I do? So if you're going to, start with something and it brings you this far down on a page, that's okay. There's nothing that says you actually have to fill a page. It's not about, sometimes we talk about journaling pages, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be just sort of, here's this idea. I'm going to capture that. Here's this little nugget. Let me just jump over to my camera here. So you can think about sort of things in lots of different ways. Sort of, when you've got more time to sit down and play with something, you might sit down and play with something for more time. If you're kind of geeking out about the way that echoes bounce and reverberate around in a culvert, which is, I was playing with Amelia. We went down this culvert and we were just noticing where our echoes were the strongest, and it was really, really cool. And that was really fun. And so this, here's a little nugget that I could get in there. If I didn't put this down, I would have forgotten about doing that. But here's just a little bite-sized piece. And here's another bite-sized piece. Is this day of playing in a culvert, listening to our echoes. My daughter said to me, "Daddy, this is the second best day ever. The best was the day I was born." There's this gift from the world. And, if I didn't have time to do this, maybe I could just put that on my journal. And that's okay. So, think about it in terms of little nuggets. There's a jewel. I can get that. I can spend more time kind of getting a bigger jewel or a little jewelito, right? So don't think that you have to do like a project in your journal. Sort of one thing can be kind of a nugget, and then you put that nugget next to the next nugget and the next nugget, and then it feels like that was the plan all along, but it wasn't. So a page full of things for me is usually just kind of a collection of nuggets. So if I'm out and I encounter a critter and it gives me some time, I can journal about that, and then it goes away, and then I can find another thing and I can spend some time with that. So this page sort of was built by just sort of assembling a few nuggets together, but it's not that you're supposed to do some complete thing. Getting a little bit of something is better than getting none of it. So sometimes when you're spending time, and you have a lot of time to all spend with one critter, then you might look at this and sort of think like, oh, with a page, you're supposed to somehow get from this corner of the page to here filled with whatever that idea was. But then to just kind of go back to what you also can just put a little piece down here, like I did this one day, then I did this another day, and I drew a line and it's there on the same page. I'm now in a different place. But I just sort of drew that line to save paper. You don't have to finish that page. Another thing that I realized is that, hold on, I need to grab my, here's my little sketching demo notebook here. Sometimes I realize that one of the techniques that I've shown people for approaching a drawing actually can get you into this sort of zone of feeling like I'm behind. And that is, I often encourage people to use a non-photo blue pencil to block in the basic shape of whatever it is that they're going to draw at the start of a drawing. By the way, the reason you don't see me using this pencil as much these days is because when I draw with this non-photo blue pencil on a piece of paper for the video camera, that's you, it's so pale that you can't see it on the camera. It doesn't really show up on camera. So people have been seeing me do a lot more of these sort of initial sketches with a different pencil. And that is because this one does show up on the screen, still pale, but bold enough for me to, bold enough for you to be able to see on the page there. But this actually can be a problem, and I'll show you why. Let's say you're watching the little warbler outside your window, and then it moves, and so you're okay. Like, here's my next sketch of this, right? And then it moves again, and now I'm just gonna get maybe a close-up of its head, and what is the pattern that I'm seeing on that? And after a while of doing this, I've got a bunch of these non-photo blue pencil sketches here on my page. And then there's this voice that says, you need to finish these, right? And because you started it, you need to finish what you started. Now, if that seems fun to you, great. If that is going to make you happy, that's great. But if you start doing one, right? So now I'm going to start kind of inking in, and then I decided, you know what I really want to do? I really, look, here's Trillium, and there's this wonderful flower over here. I want to play with that flower. It is okay to leave this here. I just started this, but look, these are all unfinished. I'm just going to write yellow rumped warbler. And I can just leave that stuff unfinished. And later on, if I feel like it, I can. But what can happen is you can end up with a whole journal filled with these sort of starts of things. And then it feels like you're behind. You're behind the curve now because you haven't inked this or put watercolor on it. And then you start to feel like, oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. And so let yourself on your journal pages have some things that are partially done. If you finish something, that's great. If you don't, that's great. You can also work sketches to different degrees of completeness. You can have some things where you mess with it like this, some things where you mess with it like this, some things where you mess with it like this. And those, it's all good. It's all fun. So it's not that everything needs to be to the same degree of completeness. Another thing that can happen is that you feel that some people will have a field sketchbook, a field notebook, and then they want to have kind of the final version that they are going to, so they have one book that they bring out with them in the field, and they'll do their drawings and sketches there, and they'll take their notes. And then you bring it back home, and then they transcribe it from that little field notebook into another notebook. This can really, and if that is something that you enjoy doing, that's great. But the danger is that that really, really can make you start to feel behind. Because now I've got all these pages in my little field book that I haven't transcribed. And then I feel like I'm being a bad biologist. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this right. So if instead you give yourself the room to, when you're out in the field, put stuff down in your book, and you know, so, and feel free to kind of dive in with you know, write notes in with ink, or pencil that you can see. You're not going to end up with then having to take all this information and transcribe it over to this other book. Oh, just kind of another kind of example of this. Look, here's some drawings of sandhill cranes. Ooh, look, it turned its head away from me. That's cool. Now here's the sandhill crane drawing in a different pose. And I never finished that. I never went back. It's okay. It's okay to have some things further developed and other things less. As a matter of fact, it looks really interesting in a sketch if you have part of it where you have just kind of quickly indicated things. And in that same sketch, let's say here in the head, if I were to kind of take more time here, and let's say it was a Townsend's warbler, and I really kind of got into that pattern in its head. I can have part of my drawing where I do that with more care and detail. I can have part of my drawing where it is more kind of loosely sketched out. And part of my drawing just completely incomplete. And then when people look at your drawing, they will see that they can actually see part of the process. Oh, you know, so first you were kind of blocking things in with this blue pencil, and then you kind of went over that, and these were kind of some of your starting kind of guidelines. And then, you know, you then you worked in these sort of more of these tones and details, and then you put watercolor on that part over there. But when I can actually look around the drawing and actually see examples of those different stages of the process, visually, that's really interesting. It's cool to be able to see how somebody was thinking and working without, you know, very often I find that a sketch is often more interesting than a finished illustration, because you can see the thought that is behind it. So by not finishing this drawing, I'm also showing some of the thought. I'm just revealing kind of the scaffolding of part of my thought. So things can be actually really interesting if you don't finish things. So one idea is leave things undone and have that be an asset. It's a feature. It's a feature now that part of this drawing is just undone, right? That there's going to be, this is, you know, places for me to put in some of my stripes on the belly, but I'm not going to get in there and put all those in. Two white wing bars. So that is a kind of one way of thinking about sort of a pressure relief valve on all the things that you're supposed to do. Another strategy that you can have is if you're thinking like, I need to finish a page, a great way of kind of getting around that, and also to make it easier for you just to put in the next little nugget and the next little nugget and the next little nugget as they occur to you, is as you're putting stuff on a page, intentionally have one page spill over onto the next page so that you don't have to think about your nature journal the way that you read a book. So in a book, you start top left-hand side of the left-hand page, and you kind of work your way down, and then up to the top of the next page, and you work your way down. So when you are working in your journal, you don't have to follow that model. So check this out. So think about the line down the middle of your page as, let me back up here, as a boundary that you can playfully cross. And so here is notes about this shell. Here's a little landscape drawing. Notice that this landscape drawing goes across both pages. By the way, this is harder to do if you're using things with a spiral binding, because then that binding is really in your face in the middle of the page. Little notebooks that open flat are great for this. But if you are doing something and you kind of can, smear across into this other page, then it makes this next page over here a little bit, easier to access. That there's not as much space there, so maybe it's not going to be as intimidating just to drop something on there. So for instance, on this page, I had all this information, and it took up about, all of this page and then part of this. And then the next day, actually a few days later, it was the 21st minute of the 21st hour, the 21st day of the 21st year, the 21st century. And so I just made a little note of that on a page. I wonder if I would have put that into my journal if I was looking at a completely blank white page. But here's this kind of neat little kind of weird meta moment. And I made a note about it in my journal because, and it felt less intimidating to do that because there was already stuff on this page. So if I'm taking notes about something and something can spill over onto the other page, it makes this page over here just a little bit more accessible. So as you are kind of working your way through your journal, are there things that you can do to kind of get this page to sort of spill into this one? And then imagine when you're kind of getting to the end of a page, is there one last final thought that you might be able just to drop into the next corner of the next page? Just so that the next time you open up your journal, there's some little nugget there that's already broken in that page. It might make it easier then to have other little moments and things follow. And those little nuggets can be as big or as small as you want them to be. So I want to when we look at sort of a page like this, it feels kind of like this monolithic block of work that was all done at once. But really what this was just sort of getting one thing and then getting another, and then putting that then with another thing, and then putting that together with another thing. So you can think of your nature journal then as being these modular or kind of allow these little kind of nuggets of moments. Here's my nature journal page. And maybe the day before, I had just, as I was going in for the evening, I found a little acorn. And that little acorn is still up there on the corner of the page. And so when I'm starting this next day, there's a bunch of sparrows that are out by the edge of that bush. And I'm going to just draw in a little box. Here's the little bush. And I'm going to show that the sparrows were, I'm writing up here that these sparrows were hanging out, right next to the bush, not venturing far out into the field. And I'll put a little date in there. Maybe that's all I get that day. But if I had done this, and I'm not feeling like, this is this little nugget that sort of I can complete. Then maybe it's not quite as threatening then to start maybe draw in some of those little sparrows and just sort of start with like, here's this little sparrow, here's this little sparrow. This is how it looked from the front. It had these stripes on its tummy, right? And I'm putting some written notes with those, draw a little line to it. By the way, the minute you start adding written notes on your journal with lines pointing to parts of your sketches, like you're seeing here, a lot of the pressure to have to make a pretty picture will evaporate. The writing on your nature journal page, and sometimes even writing directly on top of your little notes and things, it's a grand way to kind of take pressure off. But now you've got these two little sketches down here on your page, and maybe one of those you took some time and you developed it further. Right. Do I have to do that with this one? No, I don't. Actually might be more interesting to leave some of these as just sort of parts of sketches. Then I'm on my way on down the trail. Later on, if I want to come out the next day, I can pick up from here. Right? Or I can put something over here into this area. All right. So I could start here and continue here. I could start here the next time I'm done. Another thing I could do is I could kind of come back home, and I could, if I wanted to then, I could write some written notes. I sometimes find it's nice to sort of reflect and think back on what you're doing. And are there things that I could have noticed or thought about? Any I noticed, I wonder, as it reminds me of, that I didn't get recorded when I was out there? Is there anything else that I might want to kind of keep and save about that experience? Another thing that you can do is, if you want to then sort of, keep playing with this, I can write, these are golden crowned sparrow flock. You can put in a title with your page. You can put in a little box of metadata, your location, the date, the weather. You can put those sorts of things into, you can add more written notes. So you can add other things later on. The other day we were talking about sort of the idea of sort of post hoc composition. So adding in titles and things like that, you can do all those sort of things, but don't let that be this extra thing that you feel like now I'm supposed to do this and do all these other sorts of things. If that feels fun for you, I sometimes like to play with those sort of ideas. Other times I just sort of let that page have an opening for the next time I come out there. And what does that look like in the field? So, here I'm looking at a buckeye. The next time I come out, I'm looking at it from a different angle. This was something that I did sort of in one day, running around on a salt flat, exploring things. Sometimes I do fill up a page in a day, but other times I'll just sort of get a part of a thing and a part of a thing and a part of a thing, and you assemble those all together, and you go like, somebody looks at it and says, "Oh my gosh, look at what you did in one day." No, that was yesterday. This was this morning, and then this was something I did that after. This was in a totally different location. I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but there's non-photo blue pencil lines here that have not been inked over. Sort of a posture of another bird there. And so here on this page, here was a very cooperative bird. It sat there, I drew it, I watercolored it. Here was a bird that was not as cooperative. It was walking back and forth, and I made several different sketches of it, one with a lot more detail. Here is blocking in patterns on the head of that bird, right? So you can get sort of one nugget, another nugget, another nugget. You splice those together. It looks like your kind of goal was to sort of finish this whole page out. But really, this was just then another encounter with another cooperative critter. Yeah, anything that have a low threshold for dropping a nugget into your journal. So this was hiking with the family. We hiked up to some snow fields, and as we were walking back, Carolyn had a stick with a snowball on it, and she was wanting to watch that snowball melt. And so she had this little stick, she was carrying this, and I thought like, oh, there's that little moment. I want to remember that. So I put in a little doodle of it. Some things that I do will take more time, but have a kind of a low threshold for just kind of jotting down a note for anything that's significant to you. I haven't heard from Yvea and Brian and Melinda in a bit here. I want to kind of jump out to the kind of larger community. Somehow time got away from me. And I was wondering if I could bring in any of our team here for other sort of thoughts, nuggets, and ideas in this area.
I honestly don't know what to say that hasn't already been said. I think that you and Melinda just captured all of it so well about being able to just let go and to not worry so much about it, and then to do what you can on whatever day that you like, whatever day that you have. Sometimes you will have this desire to do a deep dive into something. Maybe something's a growth edge, and maybe one day you're just like, okay, I want to see what this is all about. And you go in and then that becomes something fun for you instead of something that causes anxiety. Or maybe you only have 3 minutes that day and all you can do is draw one little thing that you saw in the garden, and you just enjoy those 3 minutes. And it's more in my mind about, I mean, because practice is a huge part of our nature journaling, but it's also mindset. And I mean, we talk about this a lot too, that it's about your mindset, about knowing what you get from it. In fact, I think that that could even be a fun thing to kind of journal as well, is to consider when you're getting stressed out about not doing all of the classes or not doing everything in your journal, think about why it's stressing you out. Is it because of the shoulds? Is it because you're feeling like you should do this? Is it because you're wanting your page to be presentable? Or is it like if you're missing out on classes and but you don't want to, is it because you're wanting to give that attention to the teachers, or you're wanting to see your friends in there, or just it can be kind of good to figure out what your motivation is for why you're doing things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I had any other gems, just that it seems like a few of us have tried the thing before where we've had two classes going on at the exact same moment and tried to attend both of them, maybe on different Zoom screens or something. And some of us have discovered that that went terribly, which is terribly and hilariously. um, let's see here. I tried to do, there was this one day where Brian and Roseanne were simultaneously doing classes together, like at the same time. Brian was doing herbals and Roseanne was doing tessellations. And I attempted to take notes at the same time with both of them since they were both at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. And I look back on my notes, I noticed that I didn't do as many notes on this side, and this side I had some, but to me, this is a really sterile page. Like, I should be making tons more mistakes. I should be writing down, you know, like what did this mean and stuff like that. And maybe that's me shooting on myself again too. But the thing is that I think that it was kind of sterile because I couldn't devote my attention equally to either of the classes. It wound up being kind of a hilarious exercise though. I remember doing this another time where Brian was leading a class and Jack was simultaneously leading a class on bird drawing. And Brian would say something about how Jack had a certain technique with bird drawing. And then on my other screen, Jack would talk about that exact technique that Brian mentioned. And it was hilarious having that conversation as it like in two separate rooms. But then it's really hard, unless you've got the special talent of being able to hear multiple voices simultaneously, it can be really hard to do that. So laugh at the experience of trying to do that. And then learn from it. And then I think also, if you're worried about missing, well, I'll speak for myself. My reasoning for going to both of the classes for both Brian and Roseanne was, of course, because I was interested in both subjects, but also because I really, really like both Brian and Roseanne, and I wanted to give them both my attention and my time. And for me, it was this feeling that if I didn't, then I was somehow neglecting one. And if anybody else struggles with that, just remember that that doesn't mean that. If you can't make it to somebody's class, it doesn't mean anything less about how you feel for them. It just means that there was a lot going on. And there's always other ways of spending time together, or just knowing that you think about them that way, that you care about them, that's enough, you know? Just knowing that you care, even if you don't have time to do everything, just that you care can be enough, I think. And I think that's all I was going to say. Thank you.
That's a beautiful way to frame it. What you're saying makes me think about that it's, let's see, who was it who was in kind of tie this into a comment that somebody made, that sort of one of the things that we feel bad about is that there is, you know, whether there's these two classes and there's so much out there in nature, and you feel overwhelmed by how many classes you could take, but really just think about what is your experience that you're going to be having, and whatever you choose to do that thing. Whatever you choose to look at, yes, when you look at that one thing, there will be other things that you're not looking at, and that's okay, because you will find the depth and the beauty in whatever petals of the sunflower you chose to dive into. And does that mean that you were not really appreciating the larkspur? Yes. And another day, another lifetime, perhaps you'll have the opportunity to do that, or perhaps not, in sort of a Bob Frost kind of way. The so give yourself the permission just to do less, but to do less with kind of giving that less the full attention that you can give it. So if you can, in the time that you have an opportunity to like kind of run around and distractedly kind of get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, like I got to get it all. It's Disneyland and I want to do every ride, right? Or you could really take some time and sit down with and go as deep into this one little acorn as you can. And you're going to find that within that acorn, there are worlds and worlds and worlds. A lot of our nature journaling skill set is teaching ourselves how do I pay attention? As Mary Oliver says, let me keep my mind on what matters, which is mostly standing still and learning how to pay attention. It's a skill. And when I do that, the world can really open up before me. Melinda, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah.
You'd like to share?
Yeah, something that has come up recently for me in personally and in my business is, it ebbs and flows where I've gotten I'm saying yes to too many things because I don't want to miss out, or I don't want to let people down, or whatever the motivation is. But when I'm able to really, I like what Jack said, let me keep my mind on what matters. Instead of saying yes to everything because it's a knee-jerk reaction for me. It's our culture, our society supports that. And it's okay to say, oh, I'm so busy, right? But I actually try not to say that. When someone asks me how I'm doing, and I actually am, I've got a lot of things on my plate, I will reframe that and say, my life is so full, I'm getting to do all these different things. Because again, language makes a big difference. And same with pencil miles, it takes time to really drop in and integrate this new way of living into our lives. I'm continually learning because we're living in a society that's go, 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 go. We value productivity. We value getting things done, amassing more. And what we really need is to slow back down, drop into nature's pace. And like Jack said, sit with an acorn and the wonders and the beauty of nature will unfold for you, rather than being a squirrel and trying to capture it all, right? Just the surface level. And maybe sometimes where your brain space is, you're kind of scattered and you need that, surface level. Okay, let me just find 5 different flowers. I'm going to do 5 different flowers. I'm just going to do like really shallow observation. And then maybe with practice, you'll start to deepen those observations and slow down. So this is actually a journey into really being present. So wherever you are in your journey is okay. You have permission to take it however speed that feels good. And for those of you who've been journaling for a while, Jack, said it earlier, and I mentioned it earlier, that life ebbs and flows. So there are times where you're excited and you're journaling a lot. And then there are times where you're kind of pulling back because there's other things going on. And for me, it's really about my practice. I'm deepening the heart connection, really slowing down to get a richer experience with nature, not just about filling pages. So wherever you are in your journey, you're perfectly in the right place. And the important thing is to just keep coming back to it, keep coming to nature, because the world is so busy right now. We need this connection with nature to help keep us grounded and to help keep the stress levels down so that we can be the best humans for our family, for ourselves. And by saying no, that's the other thing I wanted to say. By saying no to something, I'm going to invite you not to dwell on that no, But think of it this way. When you say no to that one conference or activity, you're saying yes to everything else that matters. So
say that again.
yeah,
Say that again. That was
when you are saying no to that one more class, you're actually saying yes to all that matters. And sometimes we might have to weed out some things from our schedule. I recently had some issues with my body, and I had to weed out some things from my schedule because it was necessitated. And if it wasn't for that physical issue, I would not have taken those things out. And what I discovered is that breathing space is where we can be a human being instead of a human doing. And that's kind of my default, and our society really encourages that. So I'm going to invite all of you to not feel guilt about the pages you haven't finished, about the classes you haven't gone to, and just be okay with whatever you have that's in front of you.
a human being versus a human doing.
Oh yeah, it's not a new phrase. I'm sure you've heard it of
I have
before.
not. I have not.
But
That's fine.
that is my default. Is I've grown up in a culture and with an expectation that it's more, I am of value if I'm doing and accomplishing and creating things. And if I stop that, then my value drops. And that's that is what's driven me, in my life. And in this year, in this age of wisdom, as we get wiser, as we get older, I'm learning more and more how to actually to unplug. This is what I'm imagining. It's like you're taking that electrical cord and pulling out of the wall socket and saying, I am not plugging into the craziness of the doingness of this world right now, because what Jack has taught me in what he's been saying, talking about his daughters with such love and compassion, is that I can be neglecting my family because of all the yeses that I've said to other people. And it doesn't make me a bad person if I say, I'm sorry, I can't do this activity, because what that means is I'm saying yes to what really matters in my life. And that's what we want more of in this world.
That is beautiful. And that's why we're here. Right, Melinda? That's what makes the difference. I'd like to kind of close with just with a poem by Mary Oliver. And then usually what we do is we kind of bounce to a kind of a sharing session where people are sharing pages of nature journals. In this, I would also like to encourage people, if this discussion has brought up any thoughts or ideas for you that you wanted to share with us. You don't have to be holding up a journal page and saying sort of the normal thing. So feel free to kind of like bounce out of the regular structure. If you have any thoughts or ideas or comments that you wanted to share with the community, we invite that. So this is a short poem by Mary Oliver called Praying. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot, or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. Thank you all. I'm now going to jump over to my gallery view. And if anybody would like to comment or share your thoughts and ideas, just put up a hand, or if you'd like to share some stuff that has happened in your journal, you can. And we would love to hear from you and your thoughts and ideas. I'm going to first go to Heather and then we'll bounce over to Walters. Actually, there's two Heathers. I'm going to first, actually, let's do Heather, so that so first Heather, and then Heather Kinch, and then down to Walters, and then we'll see. So Heather, thank you for being with us. Oh, we need to make you able to unmute yourself. That would help. You may now unmute yourself.
So I've been doing a really great creativity seminar. And one of the things that we did this week that I thought would be useful for when you get overwhelmed is to take it back to basics. So in this class, she told us to think about this would be when you're nature journaling, how does that make you feel? So those are the inner ripples. And then the next ripples would be, and how does that, after you nature journal, how does that change the way you act? And then continuing the ripples, how does that change the things around you? So how does that make the world better? How does your family react? How do you act differently? So instead of thinking, here's all the things I have to do, remember why you're doing this. You're doing this because it makes you happy, because it gives you a sense of peace. And how does that change the way you act? And how does that way change the way people act? The way that you act towards people change things. So I thought it was a really good way to come back to why you do things.
That's a really interesting framework. I'm drawing my little...
And it was all based on ripples. So you start with something like nature journaling and how it ripples out. So if you just focus on the basics, this is why I'm doing it. The page is not important. What is important is how it makes you feel and how that changes how you act, and that's how you change the world, right?
That's right. Thank you, Heather. Now, Heather. Hi there.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jack.
Hello there. Good to see you.
Good to be here again. I have some journal pages that I've been doing. I've been doing these since I started this with you and with this group. And these first journal pages pretty much encapsulate everything that's been talked about today. Plus one other thing that I want to point out. I have a garage full of sketchbooks, and I have a tendency to start a sketchbook for something, assign it to that something, then go put it away because it belongs to that something.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of market it territorially, so to speak. And so I went to grab a sketchbook. I wanted toned paper, and I grabbed one from the garage, and I had already assigned it as a zoo book. And so normally my normal thing would be to say, oh, I can't use this book. It's for the zoo. I can even get more microscopic and say, oh, this one's for gorillas only. And the next one's for flamingos only.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to challenge this. And I turned it into a journal page. In terms of starting and never finishing, this one, well, first of all, I do not have a science background. I have an artistic and storytelling background. So I turn my pages into stories. And last July, we still had our migrating orioles. So this page is about on my patio. We were still in full lockdown. So I laid it in. I lay in with Tucson red Coley race rather than non-photo blue. I can paint over it. I can do color pencil over it. And it makes a beautiful page, even if you never get back to it.
Oh, that's nice.
So
I like that. What color is that?
Tucson red Coley race.
Nice.
So this is an unfinished page. The intention was to go back and make it a full color, beautiful, almost like a painting. And as you can see, I did some color keying. I also, in terms of the storytelling, I follow a motif. So my motif here throughout was to put the leaves. And everything I do is a suggestion. The leaves suggest the foliage, trees, suggestion of a wall, suggestion of the fence. And I called this one An Evening with the Hoods. The next pages are all completely unfinished. This one is called Observations of the Hoods, and this is where I just sat and watched the activity and wrote about it and just did a little tiny sketch. I don't know if you can see it because again, it's an unfinished page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ends up being pale, but sometimes, you know, when we have these books sitting around, we'll then feel like, oh, I need to finish this before I like start my next thing. And then that pressure just builds up.
Well, I never let the pressure build up because I
Okay.
determined this time I'm not going to do that because I can. I was very susceptible to that and have been susceptible to it. It can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
But with this journaling, with this on my own, there were a number of things I wanted to overcome. And one of them was that, the not moving on because I have to finish what's here.
Right.
So I have this entire sketchbook is unfinished, but it's all stories. This is Hummer Summer. And I've incorporated a lot of the things I learned here, like the movement of the Hummer, tracking which way the Hummer's going. And here, things I would have never done without this class, tracking the movement of the movement of the heads.
Oh, yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it's a completely unfinished book.
Yep.
But it's all the stories. It's the story of the backyard during lockdown.
Oh, that's really fun.
Oh, and I spread my metadata throughout. I don't put it in a single block.
That is fine.
Because I've got it all over here. I've got the sun up here, the date down here,
Oh, yeah.
times throughout, just in keeping with making it a story.
I like the setup there in the corner. Heather, thank you so much for doing that journal flip with us. That's really
You're
helpful
welcome.
to sort of see that process. And you're right, it just ties into so many of the themes we're exploring today. Thank you. Volters, I love to bring you in on the discussion. How are you doing?
Hi, fine. I'm fine, thank you. So actually, tomorrow is the day that I've been journaling for a year. A year ago, I started journaling, and I found actually my first journal, and this was my first entry in a journal. It was a very great birding day, and I came back home, and my mom had just bring me this journal, and I just kind of feel that this is like the first day's observations. So tomorrow's my nature journaling anniversary, so to say. And I just wanted to say that it's really been great, and definitely journaling has helped me notice things in nature, and specifically in birds, because I watch birds the most, that I've haven't noticed before. And also these sorry, voice is breaking a bit. Also these virtual classes, I did the first one back in, I think in January, that I first joined. When I was sharing the first time my journal, I was shaking, my hand was going like that, and there was sweat coming off coming off, and I was just, because I'm typically very shy, and it's been very great to, it helped me build up my confidence, and it's also, I think that it's a big problem here that we have. For example, I live close to a beautiful nature reserve, and there's a problem that it's being littered, and right now, and it's a dune. It's dunes, and they have started to grow with trees. So in 15 years, there's going to be a forest, which is also not bad, but this is a unique reserve that we have here, and it's sad to see that the local community is not doing anything. I am currently writing a plan that we're gonna sign into the European Parliament. So going big time, and it's just great to have this whole virtual community that I can share my thoughts with, and really like a second family. I feel like I know everybody. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Walters, we are, I'm so proud of you for, taking those first steps into journaling, then into sort of stepping up to share it with us and connecting with us. Your observations and thoughts and participation in this has been something that many of us really look forward to, checking in with you and seeing. It's been such a delight to watch your growth as an observer, as a journaler, and as a steward of wild things around you. It is fantastic to hear that you are taking steps on behalf of this threatened system. Many people, when they think about sort of protecting nature, they're thinking about just sort of on an individual organism basis, like I'm going to help that squirrel. And what you're doing is really showing an ecological consciousness. Many people would also say, like, oh, trees are good, trees are nature. Therefore, but when you take an ecological perspective, the things in that dune system, those are unique, and it has its place. And I really honor you for fighting for that. You do so much in stewardship for the critters around you. Again, how many bird boxes have you created and are monitoring right now?
45.
45. So the creating wildlife habitat around you, and now going to bat for this threatened ecosystem. That's really, really cool.
Yeah,
and,
it's just kind of growing up with trees, and it's like 50 years ago, it was pure sand dunes. There were a lot of birds like bee eaters and European rollers and all sorts of stuff like birds and insects living there. But now it's just like grown into a pine forest. There's still some patches where it's dunes and how it like the natural habitat as it is, but it's starting to grow, every year, small pine like this, next year it's like that, next year like that. So yeah, it's just sad to see if it keeps on going like that. It will, sorry to say that, well, it's nature, but it will be just another pine forest, so which we have here a lot. So we need to protect also the environments that are unique.
Was there some sort of ecological event that had happened that such as a fire or some other event that originally I'm wondering, what it was there a sort of disturbance process that originally allowed this dune system to be established?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure why it was like that, because when I'm looking at like 120 years ago, 100 year old pictures of the town that I live in. For example, in front of me now, out my window, I see grass, there's pine, a couple of other trees, some bushes, and the sea. But for example, in pictures like 100 years ago, it was just sand, nothing other but sand. And to think how strange it was unique. And well, it's beautiful now also. But yeah, it's amazing how ecosystems change so fast like that. So
the process of, we call it succession, how this changes to this, that changes to this. You take any one moment in time and we think that what we see around us that's the steady state. But you know, the only kind of constant out there does seem to be change. Be interesting to see if 100 years ago, if wood was the primary fuel that people in the houses were doing. I wonder if the forests were actually kept in check by people collecting wood. I know that there are parts of deforested parts, other deforested parts of the world. A lot of it is people, in some places, there's the impact of people collecting firewood has a big impact on forest systems.
Yeah, well, nowadays we might not use as much firewood, and you know, there are strict areas where you can cut down trees or private land, and now that it's a nature reserve, and so you cannot do anything there, and it just keeps on growing. Well, the trees are growing there, and it's well, it's natural. So, but we need to do something to preserve it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'd like to bring Yvea in on this. She does a lot of habitat restoration. Yvea, in your area, are you working with any dune ecosystems?
When I got started doing the restoration, I got started out at Crissy Field, which started out as a dune ecosystem bordering a marsh. But then gradually, as the military history happened in the Presidio over a few hundred years, gradually the marsh was filled in with the different trashes that would have been. It's interesting. You can dig through and you can see what different periods of time considered to be trash. So first, one thing, it didn't fill in the thing, but the earliest trash heap there was a shell mound left by the people who lived there. I can't remember, one of the Ohlone tribes, and that was their idea of a garbage dump, which is now historic. And then we had the Spanish military there, and then the Mexican military, and then the United States. And so you have pottery, you have old cloth, that kind of thing as some layers. Then later on, you get weird things like cow bodies, cow corpses that for some reason the United States Army put there. You get the remains of things from the 1906 earthquake and the International Exposition in 1915. And also in the Bay fill. And then eventually it gets filled in with concrete to become an airfield, Crissy Field airfield, and then a parking lot. And then we excavated the marsh. So we have dune ecosystems still, although at present, only dunes A, C, and D are original remnant foredunes. The others, dunes E through, I don't even remember whether it goes to Q or to T nowadays, but all of the others we had to recreate because the Army had destroyed them completely. But one thing that's kind of interesting is that once we peeled away all of that history, some plants began to come back that we hadn't planted during our restoration efforts. Like there's some kind of a morning glory. I can't remember the name, that began cropping up all by itself, which is kind of funny when you think that it's related to bindweed. I mean, convolvulus is, the bane of every gardener. And yet here that persistence helps it come back on its own. And so seeing the seed banks, and you can scrape only so much away and see what you can get back from it. But otherwise nature kind of takes its own reins and brings back other things. So I'd be curious to know what the seed bank is like in those dunes, and to know whether those trees were things that people planted, or whether there had been trees that left behind the seeds that came up later, or whether there were other trees that had been planted elsewhere and then the seeds just kind of made their way over. There's so many different ways that the seed bank can be added to. And so Crissy Field is largely pretty stable now, but we still have more work to do. We still pull up plants like the oxalis that's rather persistent. And we've begun seeing a lot more trash out there in the marsh. I remember back when it was pristine 20 years ago when we'd first dug it out and there was no trash and everything was perfect. And well, to me, at least, it was shining and perfect. And now trash everywhere. I mean, like, we're talking random spatulas. I kept that one. We're talking motorcycle helmets in the, I'm like,
How did you lose that?
in the marsh? And there's no motorcycle out there. And then like you get, of course, you get the horrible plastics, which are very persistent. And then you get weird things in the parking lot, like shredded up black plastic. I still don't know what that stuff is. And you know that it breaks down and it's got the proximity to the San Francisco Bay. Sorry, I'm rambling now, but yeah, dune ecosystems. Fun. And I'd be curious to know if there are any specialists in the dunes that are by where you live, Walters, because I know that some plants have to have specialties. If your dunes border any sort of saltwater area, then you have to have plants that can handle the salty breeze, even if they're not being submerged constantly. Or plants that, because the dunes move, you have to have plants that can handle, the sands constantly shifting. And another thing about dune plants, a lot of them, at least the ones that I know, their biggest threat is foot traffic. We can make a real mess of dunes just by walking all over them. And so I'd be curious to know how often people walk on those dunes, or if the dunes are largely left alone, because that can make a huge impact as well.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That's right. We have like a small patch here that was originally dunes, and they put a camping there like 20 years ago, and people started coming with tents and just walking all over there. And it turned from like it was like small grass, and I don't remember the plants' names in English, but it started to turn to moss, if I'm saying it right. Moss, like the green, soft on wooden in woods. It started to grow because some microorganisms from people's feet, boots, and started going in there, and it just changed like that. So yeah.
Wow.
That's
So
interesting.
we want to wish you thank you for telling us about your journaling anniversary. And so you have our deepest respect as a part of this nature journaling community and the inspiration that you are there, and also as a model of stewardship and conservation. Really using your love of these places to motivate you to protect the organisms and now the systems that things are living in. That's just great respect. I also saw a note from Ann Chadwick of Point Blue Conservation Science. So also sort of tying into they're interested in doing they're doing conservation work on dunes as well. So you've got more links and connections there with this community. We really respect that.
I was going to add too, one thing that might be kind of fun is if you, as you find out more and more history of the dunes, it might be interesting to sketch note how they changed in the layers of history. You could sketch note what it looked like, what it looks like now, and then you can go back a little bit when the last major change was, where you can sketch note like having the tents all over it, and then what happened before that.
Yeah.
That could be kind of an interesting way to just kind of see how it's changed over time, and then it might spark some more ideas and questions about, that how would this have impacted that, or where did this go? Just
I'll try to do some research on that. It would be interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. And I just have one news that was great. I forgot to share. So remember the Tuesday I told you that it was going to be a great day?
I know. You're heading out with your journal, and we all wanted to see like what's going to happen next. We were left on this cliffhanger.
Well, sadly, there were so much birds that I just was just watching through my scope and was going like that, and didn't get chance to pull out my nature journal that day properly.
It's all right.
And but there's another good news. We saw a new bird species for Latvia. So
What showed up?
first one, yeah,
What showed up?
black-winged kite. Black-winged kite.
Wow. Where had it
So-
flown in from?
Well, I think Spain, Italy, somewhere like that area. So yeah, about like
That's
that.
fun.
It was very, sadly I didn't capture it as well. I was just, everybody was just taking photos and looking at it, and you know, it shows up for like 20, 30 seconds, just hovers over your head and flies who knows where. But yeah, it was amazing.
That's really cool. That's really
It-
cool. Oh, Walters, what a great day.
It was a great day. And today actually, then we afterwards we went to an old army, an army training area, and there's just sand because tanks trained there years back. And there was this plover, ringed, or I think it's called ringed plover. They were making nests and they were chasing everything off. It was like a wagtail came too close and it was just flying after it.
Wow.
And swifts, it was chasing swifts in the
It's
air.
chasing swifts.
Swifts, yeah. it
How's
was
that going to work
crazy.
out for you, little plover?
He was just going like that, crazy. It
Everybody get
really
these
looked
guys.
like he looked like an, I don't know, an F-22 fighter jet, you know, over in all the army training. He was just going like that, protecting his area. It was so strange.
Now, swifts can outmaneuver a peregrine falcon.
Yeah, and he
so
was just going
good
after
luck,
them like
plover.
crazy. It was crazy. And also did this landscapedo that I really like.
Oh, fun with the little frame section.
Yeah, this is a river which we stayed by, and it has a very steep shore. It's like also like dunes a little bit. So yeah, and went fly fishing and caught a chub also. So
Oh, that's great. I like the measurements in there too. Words, pictures, and
Yeah.
numbers. All those details come in. It's neat to then sort of cross train. You bring in like a new species. You're like, oh, like how do you?
mm,
Oh, that's really fun. Hey, thank you so much, Walters. It's
Thank
really
you.
good to see you again, and happy anniversary.
yeah, thank you.
I'd now like to bring in Ray Bonto. Ray Bonto, it's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. So on Tuesday, the same day I saw the pied wagtail, I went out and I
Just the subtleties of the grays of the plumage of these rock doves is so exciting to see. You really see the variation. This is a wonderful set of observations. So much variability in those. That's a neat one, interesting one with the white head and the eye stripe.
yeah, that's one of my favorite breeds.
What do you know the name of that breed? What is that one? Yeah, I don't. I'm not familiar with that one. We don't really have that in our, at least in the parks and cities around me here. That's a really neat style.
Yeah, there was this other breed which looked like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool. So here's a quick sketch, and here's the detailed one.
Yeah.
Now, the problem of not putting words, but you know, I just spent this class adding in labels here and there. On Wednesday,
Oh,
Tuesday.
Ray Bonto, you're the just look at there's these in the plumages of this one here. I'm sort of seeing warm browns coming through, a little kind of almost a hint of iridescence in it. Just you're seeing subtleties of the plumage here. That's really, really exciting.
Thank you. And then sometimes I just do empty pages. If I see a really cool bird, then I do a portrait. This was also just throwing stuff around.
Mhm.
Then I saw this really cool bird on Wednesday, and boom, I got it in.
Oh, wow. This one is sort of like almost the opposite of that other one with the white head with the black stripe. Now the black head with the white stripe. And everybody look at that little hint of iridescence right by the neck there. You see that little bit of iridescence coming in there. What an interesting belly pattern.
Yeah, it had this strange brown patch.
Wow. Oh, this is deep observation.
And yeah, I just did that.
Asking questions.
Yeah, like
That's
what
great.
squirrels and stuff. Then there was this breed.
Wow. So much variation. And isn't the gouache on toned paper just seems to be an ideal medium for playing with these rock doves?
It's extremely fun. And then there was this pigeon which looked extremely worn out. I tried to capture it.
Oh yeah, it's super scruffy.
Yeah, it was just like this.
Oh, how interesting.
A little thinner, but
And it's interesting how some of them, even though they're in the middle of a city, they can just look so perfect. And but yeah, this one sure looks like it was just kind of got out of the tub and kind of scruffy. That's fun.
yeah, you know.
Actually, before you turn, stay on this page for a second. I want folks just to notice on that second pigeon down on the left-hand side, how Ray Bonto is sort of showing light falling on the back there, just adding a little bit of white into that gouache on the other side, the one near your right hand. Yep, that one right down there. That little pigeon, you look at it and you can feel the volume in it. Like you could pick that up with your hand.
That's in fact the real color, and this is the shadow, but
yeah,
still.
I love it. So it had so the wing was different values on different parts of the feathers.
Well,
or was that the shadow?
That's the shadow.
Yeah, that's how I was reading that. Yeah, that it felt just like I'm seeing the light and the shadow on that. Your ability to handle that gouache and show those contours of the thing is really developing.
And tone paper is so helpful that it really makes the outline much fainter, so that it makes it more realistic and it doesn't show up. Especially if you're drawing with pencil pen, yeah. Then it's too dark, but yeah. And you know, I had a similar experience with drawing. I thought that you saw remember my journal from a year ago? It was extremely I couldn't even get a complete picture.
Yeah.
Until the bird was still. I thought nature journaling wasn't for me exactly, though I knew it was at the same time.
And you stuck with it. You kept with it, and it was challenging, but you stayed with it through that. And look at what is emerging on the other side. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thanks.
Ray Bonto, really exciting to see this. Oh, Loretta Armstrong was wondering if you've had a chance to use your new telescope.
Oh, I did use it today, but since it's straight, I decided not to replace it and replace the tripod only
Good.
because the tripod is so small. We're waiting for the big one, and since it's so small, it's useless. So I just take it out alone until it'll come.
Yeah.
The large tripod. But it's great. It can go from 15 times to 45 times.
That's going to put these birds right in your lap. Walters has had so much fun with that little scope as well.
It's amazing. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to see you. Walters, I wanted to make sure that you saw the note in the chat from Nicholas, who's given you some references on dune conservation. Speaking of Nicholas, let's jump over to your journal. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm very happy to be sharing that with you. And I unfortunately, I think Walters left before I wrote that message. So I wonder if that can be recorded and shared with him later, but I don't know whether that can be done.
Yeah, what we'll do is perhaps on our next meeting, we'll see what we can find when Walters is on there, and we'll just sort of share it again there.
Yes, I will keep the link also on the document and just resend it in just in case. Yeah. So yeah, today I wanted to share another moment of a great day that happened some time ago, where we had a great opportunity to see a goshawk from very close range. Mm-hmm. And then this very same day in the evening, and we were sharing a very nice supper with my wife, and we saw this little buddy trying to get a vole in the backyard. So this is a male kestrel, and he made like an amazing thing. I never saw that before, and I was really wondering what was the angle of the wings, and then that was an impossible angle, and also an impossible angle for the leg scratching. So he was after its own supper. He was like scratching his beak and back head, and it was pulling his leg all the way back there. And then since he was at the top of a spruce tree, he had like this kind of compensation there with the wings and the tail. So it was really like awkward. It was pushed by the wind, but managed to do it. So that was fun.
Oh, this is really fun. These birds are just jewels. I love the contrast we see around the head. Those mass patterns.
I was hesitant to put too much color in that. Also, I just haven't had the time to put it on the moment, so I put the color after, but I put some notes, and I was really confused by also the shape at the back. Usually we see like a gray triangle above the black triangle, but this time for this guy, it was all dark black, even though the light was on it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
That was interesting. So it was, I think, much darker than I'm used to. And I have a little recording of the goshawk for the sound.
Let's hear.
So I hope it will go through the microphone. So that was the very melodic call.
Have you been back to your goshawk location to see if it is there again?
Yeah, I didn't see it at all after no sign, but the the owls are still there. So I'm still happy to share
great.
the sound with them, and they are probably nesting and still successful. Although there was a raccoon coming to their hole, so I hope they managed to save the eggs, but we'll see.
Oh, that's really fun. Nicholas, it's good to see you again.
Same. Thank you for sharing also this beautiful ideas about what to do and what to put on papers, and this really nice poems as well. It's very appreciated.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, my friends, we are going to close for the day. I am so grateful to all of you for being here and sharing with this community. Want to encourage people to go out into nature near you. Doesn't have to be the blue iris. Remember, it can be just those simple weeds. But it's the act of the deliberate attention that pulls the mysteries from the world around us. And should there be a blue iris, there's certainly nothing wrong with playing with that as well. So let's go out and celebrate the beauty of this world. And just as we saw with our friend and role model Walters, there's stuff which we can do in our own area to protect and preserve and conserve the natural wonders that we share this earth with. And I want to encourage people to look for those opportunities near you. In addition to that, let's take care of each other. Look for opportunities for acts of kindness and fellowship, especially with people who might seem different than you are, people who might have different values, different opinions. The more that we can intentionally look for ways to be kind and of service to people who are not within our own direct identity group, the more we're going to unravel the knots that we find ourselves in. So thank you all for being here with us, and really look forward to celebrating with all of you again.
Excuse me.
Yes, I'm going to bring in, I see, Ray Bonta.
A question. My mom and I really want me to work in a bird banding station, and we want to know how you can just. I don't want to join a organization. I mean, if I do, that would be great. But I just want to band birds or hold them. How do you do that? How do you get permission?
I would, in your area, I would start by contacting the Royal Society for Protection of Birds.
RSPB, yeah.
Yep, and ask them that question. Let them know that you're interested in bird conservation and research, and are there bird ringing programs in your area? And there's a training. There's a training period that people go through, and I would show up. I would be of help at the station, and see what you could do to get in on training programs like that. Nicholas, do you have any other suggestions in that area?
I think these tips were pretty good. That's a very good step, because the RSB also, they are not only good for species monitoring, but also ecosystem protection, habitat restoration. So you will have like a big overall what can be done at any level. So whether it's close by your place where you live, and whether you can do few days at a time or spend weeks working on that, or helping other fellows to protect birds and their habitat. It's a great organization, and they need desperately a lot of people to help them.
Yep. And I just did a quick online search for bird banding near London. There are some, there's some notes here that you might want to check out and put you on to some things that you can explore with that. So I would just do some also searches for bird banding near London as well.
Okay, if you find any good resources, you can shoot me an email. Yeah, if any of your classes isn't quite near, you can shoot me an email. So yeah, great, thank you.
They are also suggesting that you check out the British Trust for Ornithology website. British Trust for Ornithology, and in that you would go through. They will have links to Our Science, and then look at projects, and then look at ringing. And if Barnsley is near you, there's another person here who knows of a ringing project over there in Barnsley. All right, my friends, be well, be safe, and again, thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.